Well, thank you so much for joining me for another Unmuted with Marsha. We're delighted to have you spend a few minutes with us and with our next guest. He is a veteran. He is a Tennessean. He is there in Columbia, Tennessee. He is a gardener. So, three of my favorite things right off the bat. He served our nation for 17 years and 28 months of that 17 years was in Iraq during Operation New Dawn. Malachias, we are thrilled that you are with us. We thank you for your service. And I want to thank you for joining me on Unmuted because we wanted to turn the attention to veterans and talk a little bit about the VA Mission Act and the way veterans policy affects those of you who have honorably served. And we know that the VA has a big caseload backlog, and whether it's for benefits or health care. And their caseload backlog right now is north of about 250,000 cases. And the VA Mission Act was signed into law in 2019, and it was intended to increase access to community care so that veterans could get the health care that they want right in their local communities and not have to travel a distance to the VA. So I would love to hear from you. What is your experience with the VA health system? And why do you think it's important for veterans to have that option to go outside the system?
I've had kind of a mixed bag of healthcare with the VA. I've had some really great doctors, and I've had some very subpar doctors. I've had some great care and some very sub care. Like when I first retired in 2014 and I came to Tennessee, I went to the Nashville VA and I was put in through the OEF clinic. Had never met the doctor there, and the first thing he said to me was, "Well, we're going to change all of your medications." And I was like, "All of them?" He was like, "Yes." I was on 27 medications. And he goes, "Yes, we're going to change all of them." I'm like, and I looked at him, I said, "We've never met. We've never had a conversation, and you're going to change every medication I'm on, regardless of whether it is or is not working." And I kind of just got up and walked out of his office because I'm like, that's not how healthcare, like, no, that's not how this works. Um, I had a doctor where I was very concerned about the levels of my testosterone. My testosterone was measuring on average between 180 to 270, which is below the AMA standards, and VA has their own standard. And so it got to a point where I actually had to go outside on the own, use my TRICARE, and pay for my testosterone myself until I finally, was given a doctor who looked at me, listened to me, agreed with my discussion that we had about it, and said, "Sure, yeah, I'll go ahead and send you to the endocrinologist, and we'll get you a prescription for testosterone." But that took 2 years of just having discussions with doctors over and over and over again. Um, I've been sent out on community care twice. Once was for my knee, and then the doctor did everything he could to take care of me, and at the end was like, "Hey, the only thing left to do is surgery, and I'm not going to do that." And I go, "How come?" And he's like, "Because the VA won't pay for it. They're not going to pay for surgery because you're too young." And I was like, "Okay, so I guess this is just supposed to." I had a torn meniscus. I guess this is just supposed to suck for the rest of my life. All right. And just recently, I called. I live an hour from Nashville, so I'm a 65-minute drive from the Nashville VA, which meets the requirement for community care access. And so I asked for access to do dental in my local community. I spent 6 months researching dentists. I found one that I wanted to use that does all the things that I do, that comes highly recommended. And we put together a plan. We sent the plan to the VA dental community care, and VA denied it. Like, they approved for me to go to community care, but they didn't approve the work to be done. And so then I had to request for that to be appealed, which means now I have to drive to Nashville, which negates the whole purpose of community care being in the community. So then I drive to Nashville to do an appeal of, now I'm waiting on, it's going on 3 weeks now, waiting on the answer of the appeal. So
Oh
it's
my
been
goodness.
really mixed.
Yeah, and I think that we check in on how long it takes someone to get to a primary care appointment. And it can range from 30 days to 75 days in Tennessee right now, just for that initial primary care appointment. And as you say, then the process following that to see a specialist, then the appeal, then you're finally able to get to the care that you want. Well, my VA Health Freedom Act would allow you to immediately go and get the care you need to research it yourself and take the VA out of that referral process. Talk to me about the kind of difference that if we can get this legislation passed, it would make to you and to other veterans.
So I think my generation specific, I can only speak for my generation because I know where our hearts are at, right? I didn't serve in Vietnam or in those eras. So it's like I don't know what they want, but I know my generation, we spend a lot of time looking at what our disabilities are, what the treatments are, researching things online, looking for that. So it's not like we don't go into our doctor's appointments, without the knowledge equipped, ready to talk about it, right? Um, I think for my generation specifically, it would be a great thing because, like I said, we pay attention. We're paying attention to our bodies. We're paying attention to the treatment modalities that are out there, specifically for like PTSD. Right? There's thousands of different things. There's garden therapy. There's equine therapy. There's music therapy. There's art therapy. There's all kinds of different therapies that we have access to in the VA. But again, you're looking at 4 to 6 months before you can even get an appointment. Right? With if that was taken out of the equation and I could just go see the therapist that I want to go see, or I could go see a specialty therapist like art therapy or play therapy or whatever, I think it would make it a lot faster for me to get in because I could just research my own therapist and start seeing them.
Got it. Well, and that makes a difference. And one of the areas, and you just touched on this, behavioral health. And I know that you're on Twitter, you have been very open about seeking behavioral health and talking about this as an invisible scar that many in our military carry with them every single day, that invisible pain to people. And we know that telehealth, remote monitoring has made such a difference. Talk a little bit about the search for behavioral health and the scars that people carry.
I think, I think that the adjunct of adding telehealth where veterans can get on their laptop or get on their phone or just do a phone call appointment with a therapist. During COVID, there was a brilliant move that happened, right? Where they actually opened the doors where I could see a therapist from another state if I wanted to. When the regulations from COVID ended, that stopped and you were no longer able to see, like if I found a therapist in Indiana that I really connected to that was great and we had a good rapport and we got on the phone every week or every other week, I can't do that anymore. I have to see someone local. But I've spent, me personally, I've spent a lot of time researching all the different modalities because when I was on active duty and I was going through the treatment for PTSD, I struggled with, it was, here's the medications, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Are you taking your meds? See you in 2 weeks. And there was really no therapy being done. It was, I would pour my heart out because I was invested in trying to get past whatever I was going through. And I would pour it out, and I would get, okay, see you in a couple weeks. And so I started reaching out going, I want to do something different. And so I started doing things on my own, gardening, music, my faith, just all kinds of different things. And a lot of veterans they're doing the same thing. They're just looking for other ways to do it, whether it's
Well,
adrenaline therapy or whatever.
yeah. And I know that many of our audience are going to want to keep up with you, and they're going to find you on Twitter at Malachias Music.
Yes, ma'am.
And then where else can they find you and keep up with you? Because your story is a story of recovery and encouragement to so many veterans. And I am thrilled that you are willing to join us today.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for having me. They can find me on Facebook at A Warriors Garden. They can find me on Twitter at Malachias Music. They can find me on Instagram at either A Warriors Garden or Malachias Music. I write music specifically for veterans to tell the life story of what we go through, and then A Warriors Garden is is kind of like just the journey that I went through of finding my own kind of path to recovery for PTSD.
Well, I am so delighted to have you with us and so grateful for your service and for your openness to talk about your path to recovery. And our audience, you'll always find me online at Marsha Blackburn. Thank you so much for joining us today.